How's it going, man? Can you hear me? Oh, no worries. We'll just wait a few minutes for to see if anybody else joins. Oh, doing pretty good. I think this is going to be my last week doing this, but we'll do a Q&A next week just to kind of cover everything. How's it going, Heather?
Whoops, I'm muted. Hi,
Oh,
I'm doing great. Thanks. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well.
I'm sad this is the first I've been able to make it, but I'm here.
Yeah, this is going to be the last one I'm doing.
That's okay. I'm gonna soak it all in.
Yeah, I think this week, I think I kind of showed you a little bit about like the spring security, but
Yeah, and it's good because I was looking at it and there were a couple things that I missed. So I'm excited to get to see this. I pulled up my project that I was working on it on, and I'm gonna see if I can't fill in some gaps tonight.
mhm. I don't know if you watched last week's, but we went over some DTOs. And okay, so anything that has this is going to be a little bit more complicated with the DTOs in place, but it's a lot simpler just using the entities.
That's
So just
okay. I can't wait to check it out. I'll go back and watch the old videos, but boy, I have not had a moment.
oh, I understand. How's everyone else doing today? Anna, Chris?
I'm okay, thank you.
Nice. Did you want to check out what your issue was real quick before we get going?
So I'm actually not home, which is why I'm not on the computer right now.
Okay.
Um, but I do want to watch and see where you guys go about.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we can get started then. I will share my screen. Make sure to have Spring Security or Spring Suite Spring Tool Suite. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Um, have that going, and you also want to have MySQL Workbench. We will be using a little bit of SQL later on. So I will get into Spring Tool Suite real quick. And can everybody see this all right? Okay. So these are the two dependencies that we will be adding this week, and I will post them into the JPA channel. But you want to make sure that you have the Spring Boot starter security and the Spring security config. I will post that real quick into the JPA channel. Okay. So first things first, we will go into our model, which is our entity, and we will go into the user entity because now that we have the basic outline of everything, it's time to actually incorporate the password. And there's another variable that we'll be putting in there. So what we want to do is private string password. And we also want to call in a Boolean called enabled. Make sure to save that. And we want to create a new package here. And we'll call this package config. And most things that we'll be doing tonight, I'll just keep it in this config package. There is a service and controller here, but just for making everything neat and tidy, we'll just put most of the stuff here in the config. We'll also be messing around a little bit with the regular user service and also the user controller. And we'll also create one more DTO object, but for the most part, most of our packages are going to be, or most of our classes, I should say, are going to be in this config. So now we want to create a new class. And there's a few ways of doing this, but right now, what we mainly, there's something called user details. And there's, you could do a user details and a user details service. Right now, I'm just going to put it all together into one, but just be aware that you can actually separate these two things. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just keep it in one class. So we will call this user details IMPO, and it's going to implement user details service. Actually, I will call this user details service IMPO. All right, we'll finish that. And as you can tell, there's this load by username that comes up. This is because of the user details service. We want to annotate this as a service. And we want to annotate it as transactional. And I think it's, well, we'll have to make sure, but I think it's that one. I'll double check here in a second. Yes, that appears to be correct. Okay, so we want to make sure that our repository is in there, and we'll be using the user repository. And we want to do our dependency injection. All on that user repository. And we're just going to call super here real quick. And then we will do the dependency injection. Okay. Make sure to save that. All right. So this is going to be a little bit of code here. What we first want to do is start with a try block. I'll get into why we want to do that here soon. But we want to call on the user. And we want to find by user repository. And we will do find by user name. And we'll have to create a new method in our repository called find by username. Nope, we don't want order. We just want find by username. So we have to create this method, find by username, and the user repository. Okay. Now we'll go back to the user details service. And we will have an if conditional, if user equals null. row. New username not found exception. Okay, and we will actually the string here. No username, no user found with the username and that looks good. We want to return.
Place S for F.
Sorry, what was that, Chris?
I think you misplaced the S for the F. 931.
Line 31.
No user found.
Oh, yeah. No user sound. Very good. It won't matter, but good catch there. I didn't even see it. Okay. So we want to return. And this is where you would actually use user details, but we're just going to call on the user details itself right here, the dependency, instead of importing and creating a new class user details. We will actually call an org.spring framework.
27 should username name be capitalized as well?
This one right here,
27.
27.
User details, load user name. Shouldn't name be capitalized?
Name be capitalized. Oh, might be correct with that. Think we can try this the way it is. If it's giving us any error, we'll come back to it. But I think it'll be okay. We'll check it out. And we want to do security dot core dot user details and dot user. Actually, we'll do a little bit more than all this stuff right here. So we want to first call on our username, obviously, and then we will call on our password, user dot password, user dot is enabled. And for the rest of this has to deal with granted authorities and typically things like, well, it's actually in the user details itself. We can actually, need to actually try and import user details so we can go over it a little bit. Because it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so you have a granted authority for user details. You have a password, username, is account non-expired, is account non-locked, is credentials non-expired, is enabled. And what we'll be doing is we'll be marking all of this as true. We won't actually get into this, but I just wanted to show you what I'm referencing. So we can delete this here. That was just to show you. So, and we'll just type in true, 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 and then we will get authorities. I can type here. We will call on user dot get role. Okay, we're almost done with this. And just to make this a little bit easier to see, I will do it like so. Okay. Now we'll do our catch. And we'll say final exception. Call this E. And we'll just throw a new runtime exception. And we'll pass an E. All right. So you can see that it's not happy with us about the authorities. So we'll have to create a method called get authorities. No, I actually want to call this a collection rather than a set. All right, so we will return something called get granted authorities. Here. Privileges. And we will pass in the role. As you can tell, it's throwing a fit about that. We will actually create privileges, a new method called get privileges. And with this, let's declare this final. And don't like this. We'll do a list string. All right. Final list. And make sure to pass there the string. We call this privileges equals new array list. We'll do a quick for each. And then we will add role dot role name. We'll call this roles up here. And that's it for our, oh, we have to return this as well. So we will return privileges. Okay, now we need to create a method called get granted authorities. And we will, oh, not that. Just copy this since it doesn't want to cooperate. And we will call this we'll say private list of granted authority. And we'll just get granted authorities, and we will pass in final list string privileges. This is very similar to up above, but instead of doing a string, we'll do a granted authority. So just want to make sure that it's granted authority. And this is for what we're doing right here. I'll just take a minute to go over what it's all about. We're making sure that when we do have our roles, they give some authority. So if there's like a user role, then they'll only be conditioned for when we set up our security config to only be allowed in certain parts of the API. For example, we'll only give them get access, and then like an admin role can have the full access to put mapping, delete mapping. So this is kind of why we want to use granted authorities and doing it this way. And we want to call this authorities. This is going to be a little bit different, but we want to pull in a new simple granted authority. And we will make sure that that is our privilege. Okay, now we want to return authorities. And this is it for our user details service IMPL. If anybody wants to, or we'll have to delete this. Wait, no, that's correct. If anybody wants to, if anybody has any questions about this, please speak up. I know this is quite a bit going on here. Like I said, this is one way to do it, but there's also a way of implementing the user details itself. I just figured that this would be a little bit easier to have everything in one place rather than doing the user details as well. All right, let's make sure to save this. And we will actually create a new class. And
sorry, I have a question.
okay, what's up?
Line 50, 51. Why is there a question mark?
Question mark? That's a good question actually. This is considered a wild card right here. So it's basically like a lot of it can deal with like user input and whatnot. But we use this anytime that we want to make sure that if it's not really known exactly what we're going to be putting in there, then it's always good to use wildcards. You can use that question mark also in something called a ternary operator. And like a ternary operator is kind of an equivalent to an if else statement, right? Or an if else conditional. Might try and get into that maybe later on, but I would suggest looking up ternary operators and also looking up wildcards and stuff to get a little bit more of a understanding about how those work. All right, so we want to create a new class, and this one we will call security config. And this is mainly where we're doing a lot of our configuration itself. So what we want to do is just create this. And there's going to be a few things going on here. We want to make sure that this is annotated as an at configuration file. And we want to enable web security. And this is something that you don't really need to do this, but if you ever do method security, you'll have to annotate it with this. And I'll just kind of glance over method security tonight. I'm not going to go fully into it. We're mostly going to do a security filter chain, but I will do a little bit of method security just to show you some of the things that you can do with it. And we want to enable method security. And in here, we want to pass in pre-post enabled equals true and secured enabled equals true. We'll do JSR 250 enabled equals true. These are all the types of method security you can do. Tonight, I will show you pre-post enabled, but secured is also nice for certain methods too. Typically, what I'll do if I do pre-post enabled, this is, we'll do that for controllers themselves, for certain controllers. And if you're doing secured is good for actually putting it into the service layer and actually securing in, let's say, the user service, not the user service IMPL, but the user service itself. And then you can secure it by role and whatnot. But these are just all the different types of method security. This is the global web security. Okay, moving on. We want to auto wire our user details service. And we'll just call this user details service. Okay. And here is where we're going to do our security filter chain. This is where we're going to be using ant matchers for actually using the roles and giving them authority and whatnot. And this is going to be kind of a global thing, but we're going to use our ant matchers by HTTP method, and we're going to map them to just basically all of users. You can actually get fine-grained into this where if you have certain things where you don't want people to mess around with, then you can only specify certain ones. Like, so we have users, and let's say user, and we can make it so nobody can get into the user itself. But for this, we'll just do just a very simple way of doing this to make it easy, but just know that you can get very fine detailed into this. And this is a new way that's been done with the new Spring Security. Before, you had to do it a little bit differently, but I want to show you the new way of using security filter chains because that's kind of the standard going into it nowadays. So we want to annotate it as a bean. And we will call a security filter chain. HTTP security, HTTP, and we will just throws exception. Okay. We will return HTTP, And this right here, there's some people that like to disable this. I'm not going to teach you to disable this. I'm going to teach you how to work around this. This is called cross-site request forgery. Okay, this is important for when somebody goes, let's say somebody buys something on your website, right? Then goes to a new web page, and they can steal the type of session token, and then they can actually hack into some of that stuff. So it's very important to take CSRF security very seriously. That's why I'm going to show you how to incorporate CSRF instead of disabling it. So we will do CSRF, Lambda, CSRF. And from here, we will ignore ant matchers. And we will be calling, this is our path, okay? So we're going to just include all of our users' path. And we want to have 2 asterisks at the end of it, just to cover all of users. All right, so that's how we're going to do our CSRF. Like I said, some people like to disable it. That's not good practice. You should always ignore something that you want to ignore, and then make everything else CSRF compliant. Now we will do cores. And authorize requests. And this is where we're going to start putting in our ant matchers. Okay. So the first one is we want to use our get method, okay? So we will do HTTP method get, comma, and here again, we will be putting in the users. And we will ask has authority, and actually we'll do has any authority here. And we will be making 2 roles. One role will be called role user, and the other one will be called role admin. Okay. Then again, we'll do a lot of the same stuff. So I'll copy this real quick, but it's going to change. So we're not going to do get, we're going to do post. And we don't want the user to have this ability. So we will just cut this out and say has authority, because we're just going to find 1, and we're just going to make it sure that the admin can post. Okay. And I'll copy this again. And we will do this for our update. And the same with delete. Let's type an and. We want to do a form login. There's different types of logins that you can do, and I suggest looking into them. For simplicity's sake, we're going to do a form login. And we will put in customizer. Make sure that this is lowercase right here. And we want to do with defaults. Just close that out, and then we build it. Okay. this is our security filter chain. There's one more thing that we have to do. And this, does anybody have any questions about the security filter chain? All right. Final thing we have to make sure that we're giving a bean to is to add bean. We want to make sure that we have our password encoder. I know a lot of websites, they'll talk about doing no-op password encoders to start people out. I don't think it's really necessary, and it's actually bad practice to do no-op. We'll have to import this password encoder, and it's simple enough to just do the decrypt. I mean, this is all we have to do here. Return new, decrypt. Decrypt password encoder. And that's it right there. So there's really no point in doing a no-op password run. It's very simple to incorporate bcrypt. Okay, that's it for the security filter chain. Now we're going to create another class in our config, and this is actually going to be a controller. At first, I'm just going to show a real simple way of doing it. And later on, I'll put in some code there that makes it a little bit fancier. It's kind of what I did with my project, but just know it has like some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And granted, I'm not a front-end developer, so it's kind of messy, but you know, I think it's kind of cool. So I'll do the basics first, and then later on, I'll put that code in there just to show you what else you can do with it. And we'll just call this our home controller. Okay. We want to annotate this as a REST controller. And here we're just going to do get mapping. And we'll go through our root. We'll be returning a string, and we'll call this home. And we will just return we'll just say hello, everyone. All right, so copy this here. We will be doing a little bit different. And we want to do get mapping, and we'll call this user. And we also want to use the pre-authorize. And this is what I was talking about with method security and the pre-post authorize. So this is one of those for the custom methods security. So we'll call in pre-authorize, and we will actually put in has rule, and we will type in, oh, here we go. We'll type in rule user. And that looks correct. We'll call this user, and we will say hello user. Again, we'll copy this. Instead of this, though, we're going to type in role admin. And we will call this admin. Like I said, this is just really simple. What this will do is it will return onto the page whenever you go to the root. It will say hello, everyone. If you go to dash user, it'll go hello user, and same thing with dash admin, say hello admin. Pretty simple. We'll get a little bit more complicated, make it a little cooler, but this is just the basics. You can play around with this and add your own HTML code and CSS and really flesh it out if you know some of that stuff. And what I like doing here is creating a custom error controller. You might have ever seen those white pages that say no custom error controller defined, or nothing for the path error defined. So this is just a way of doing that too. So we'll create another class. We will call this custom error controller. And we want to implement the error controller. Okay, here we will just annotate it as controller. And we will request mapping error. And the response body. And we will say string error HTTP status. Make sure that we import this. And then it will just return error. And we can actually add in the HTTP status too, if you want to. And we want to make sure that we have the error path. So we will just say public string get error path. We'll return error. Okay, and this is all we're going to do for the error controller. Again, like with the home controller, we can flesh this out, make it a little bit nicer, particularly right in here. This is where we'll do our response body and whatnot. But that's it for our home controllers and our custom error controllers. Now I want to make a new DTO. So we already have our user DTO, and I'm actually going to copy this. But I'm going to keep our user DTO because we don't need to be passing our password and stuff into various other stuff and our get mappings and stuff like that. So this is nice with DTOs. We can kind of pick and choose what we want to pass in. So like before, you need to make sure that you have at least Java 14 or above to use the record. Otherwise, you're going to have to use a class. And we will call this security user DTO. And we'll just pass in all that other stuff. And we need to pass in the password. And we'll do Boolean. And we'll just call this active right here. And that will be for enabled. All right, this is it for the user DTO right here. Now we'll actually go to the user service. And I'll actually delete this right here. what we're going to be using this for, the security user DTO, is in our save user and our update user. And we'll modify the delete user. I wasn't really satisfied with how I did things last week. I want to show you a different way of doing it. So right here, instead of user DTO, we are just simply going to change this as security user DTO. And we'll do that with our update. And we will change the delete. I don't want to pass in user DTO. And you'll see why I do this later on. We will just be using our ID like from before, but we will be passing along a DTO as we get further on. Okay. One thing I want to do before we get into any more of this, because we're going to update that delete mapping, I want to get into our email repository. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new custom method, email find by user, since it has the many-to-one, one-to-many relationship there. And then we will pass in user. I want to make sure that we pass in the right one. Okay. All right. So we want to make sure that we actually incorporate the email repository in the user service IMPL. And what we're going to do is we're going to do pretty much the same thing as we've done with these two above. And then we're going to do our dependency injection, but we want to call this email. And here we will do our dependency injection. And I will actually do that for you guys. So it's a little easier to see. And this email repository. That's our dependency injection right there. And I also want to put in, because we're going to be, when we're saving, we're going to have to do some password encoding. So we can actually go back to our security config and copy this right here. We do not need the bean, by the way, just everything else. And we will put that in there. All right. For our save user, we need to make sure that we're passing along the security user DTO there. We have to import this. And we'll just keep everything user DTO just so we don't have to do a whole bunch of changing around of things. All right, so what we'll do here is after the role ID, we will call on the new user, the set password, and we will call on user DTO dot password. Call a string password, and we'll have to get the password encoder, and then from there we will encode new user dot get password, and then from here we will do string. Okay, right here, this is everything right here that we need to actually encode the password going into the database. So when we type something in, we're not going to have, let's say we have password as our password, it's going to be encrypted into a bcrypt hash. And then we have to do this again and set password again. And then we'll call in the password. Okay. After the set username, we'll do the same thing with we'll do new user dot. Oh, this one is always confusing. With the Booleans, it's either enabled or is enabled, but is when you set it. So then we want to call in our user DTO dot active. Yeah, set enabled. There we go. Like I said, that one's confusing. And everything else looks good. Does anybody have any questions up to this point?
Yes. So in JPA, we now don't have a sys out and then a string, right? We just put single parentheses what we want to say, like JavaScript in a way.
Single parentheses?
I think we did it on security. No, user.
Okay. Was that in the security config or?
Controller.
Wait, no, I think that was in pre-authorized for the home controller.
Yeah.
So this is the string, but we want to pass in the role user. And this is just something to do with the SQL. And we always have to, any role that we put in, we always want to make sure that we have this rule right there.
So that means that it's a string, right?
Yeah, this is a string right here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And with SQL, this is how you put in strings.
Right.
Okay. With these single quotes. So this is more of a SQL thing rather than a Java JPA thing.
I kind of picture when you say hello everyone to be a string, but not sys out and then string.
So we're actually going to be passing this along as HTML, right? So you'll see what happens a little bit later on when we actually get into these, instead of actually showing the like the Swagger, we can actually create HTML code. And if you want to actually create specialized packages for HTML, I would suggest you can create it in your resources. You can just create a static package right there, and then just put all your HTML right there, and then return your HTML stuff. I'm just doing strings. It's easier, but you can also pass in HTML or whatever you want to. So it's pretty cool. Okay. So our update user, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We can copy a lot of this, but we'll change it around a little bit. Just because it's existing user and not new user. We'll change this to existing user. And we have to make sure that we do our security user DTO. And right here, we just have to do existing user dot is enabled, or no, set enabled. we will do user DTO dot active. Dookie dookie. Let's just take a look real quick. I think this is all we need to add in here, but just want to double check. All right, everything looks pretty good. Now, like I said, with the delete user, I wasn't really liking how I had things set up last week. So I just want to go back into it, change it around a little bit. From here, we want to make sure that we're going to keep a lot of the stuff, but instead of calling the user DTO, we'll just go by ID. And we also want to call in an email. This is because of child dependencies and whatnot. We're going to have to delete the email. With just simple entities, this is pretty simple, but when we're using DTOs, it's a little bit more complicated. And I'll just show you how to do a little bit of the code without getting yourselves kind of stuck. You can always do this way simpler with just entities, but with DTOs, it's a lot more complicated. Have to love complicated, right? But this is why we called in that method before with the email repository. We want to find by user, existing user. And right here, we'll do a little bit of, we'll do an if conditional. If email repository find by user does not equal null, we want to delete this. Then we'll call the user repository and delete by ID, and we'll pass in, we'll just pass in, oh, now we don't need any of this. We'll just do it like this, delete by ID, ID. Okay, I think that looks okay. We'll go back to that if we need to flesh it out a little bit more. Okay, we're almost done here. We'll go back to the user controller. And right here, just want to make sure that we're passing in the security user DTO. And everything looks good after that. For our update user, it's the same thing. Fairly simple, right? Delete mapping is going to be a tiny bit different. Instead of our request body right here, I'm going to change this. We're going to go to path variable, and we will actually just do it like this, path variable, user ID. We'll copy this right here. And create a string called get user. We'll actually call on the user service. Get by user ID, pass in the ID, and we want to make sure that we put this to string. This way we're actually passing along the DTO, because get user by ID right here, this returns a user DTO. And we will make sure that we pass in ID here. Right here, we will actually put in get user. Okay. All right, let's fire it up and see if there are any errors. Actually, one thing I want to do, we'll go into application.properties. Since I have this on update, I just want to clear out all the SQL that I've done so far. So we're just going to do create real quick, but we will change it to update. Okay, everything looks good. So now we'll go back to application.properties. We'll make this update. I'll restart for us. And now I'll actually change to MySQL, and I have some SQL script all ready to go. But I am going to change a couple things in here, but let's just make sure that we change our share here. And we will be going into MySQL Workbench. Okay, so this is what I have in here. I will just post all this stuff for you guys. What we have here is we're going to make sure that we're using the users right here, the users project. And we're going to insert into the role name, role user, and role name, role admin. Also, we're going to put into the user the username, password, enabled. And as you can see, user, this is just so we have a default user and a default admin right here. I will actually change this and I'll show you guys how to, we don't want to do that, how to actually get a bcrypt hash online. And we also want to make sure that this back value is true. We want to make sure that they're both enabled. And here is just some dummy stuff. It's just putting into the email address. So with one, we're putting in, this is just the user email. And for two, the admin will have an admin email and a super admin email, just to show you that you can have multiple. And this is basically what the user role is. So user one with the role ID has the role user. So user has role user. And also the admin has the user role as well. And the admin also has the admin role. Just because this is a many-to-many relationship here. So I will actually switch over to Firefox real quick. And right here, this is something called bcryptgenerator.com. And in here, we'll just make these very simple. We will call one, let's say, user password. We'll hash that, take this hash value here, and then we will put it into this value right here. Okay. Oh, wait, I didn't share that with you, did I? I put it into this value right here. So we'll just do that real quick. Okay. So we'll go back to the bcrypt generator again. And we'll make one called admin password encrypt. Take this hash, switch over to MySQL, and we'll put that value in here. Okay. So it's bcrypt. This is kind of showing the rounds right here that you're doing, and then you have a salt after that. This is just kind of a random generated stuff, and the rest is actually what you encrypted. So that's hashing. You can't decrypt for certain things when you're hashing it. So a hashing algorithm is a one-way function. And that's why you use hashing algorithms instead of standard encryption, like symmetric or asymmetric encryption that you would do with other stuff or passwords. You want to make sure that you're using a hashing algorithm. And
so is that why, like, if you forget your password on certain websites, they don't email you and tell you what it is?
Yeah,
Because
they don't know. They don't
you
know.
have to create a new one.
Exactly, because it's only hashed in the database. You want to make sure that it is hashed. If they have clear text of your password, that's very bad security practice. And like right now, all we're setting up is a default user and a default admin. If once you get things set up, you want to delete the default user, delete the default admin, and create new users and new admins. There's a lot of things that will come out that will have default users and default admins on, like just routers or something like that, right? You probably had something where there is a default user. You want to make sure you change that and then delete it. Just because in a lot of production stuff, they will keep the same password for every different thing that they put out. So it's extremely important when you deal with default users, default password, or default admins and default passwords to delete them after you've gotten things set up. Okay, I will actually post the SQL into the JPA channel just to help you guys out. This is just our basic SQL, and it's always good to run a little bit of SQL if you haven't done it in a while. I think that it definitely helps when keep you up and keep up on your skills. Like SQL isn't that difficult, and with JPA we can kind of get lazy with not doing any SQL. So it's always good to go in there and keep practicing it. Okay, so let's actually switch back to Firefox, and I'll expand the screen. Can you see this okay? Okay, and we'll just go to localhost real quick. And actually, what I want to do is make sure that everything is logged out. So, okay, so when we go to the root, it says, hello, everyone, right? That's what that thing was when we were doing the returning the string. And it will actually double check that we signed into user. Nope. It sends us all the way back to this form. This is the whole reason for what we've just been doing. And right here, we will actually sign in with the user. And we will do user and user password. Sign in. No, not admin. And why is it showing that? No name, no user found with the name user. I set everything up correctly. I have to double check this. Details. Okay.
Is it because you didn't change it to update again, or does that have no bearing?
Yeah, we'll double check and go back into JPA. Okay. What's it tell me? Internal error occurred while trying to authenticate the user. Oh, I know why. This is silly. This is really silly. We didn't run the SQL statement. There we go. Now we should be able to do this. Okay. I'll actually change this to here. We'll use Chrome instead. I like using Chrome. Okay. So we'll go, oh, I think we have to restart this. Yep, because we stopped it. Okay. Let's go back here and let's start this back up. Okay. Go back to Chrome. Oops, don't want to go there. Okay. Technical difficulties. Bear with me here. All right. Go back to Chrome. And let's just do localhost. Okay, so this is the root. And let's actually try go to user. And it's sending us to sign in again. So user password. And it says hello user. Okay. So we're going to want to go into Swagger now. And the way I have it set up is we'll just have to go in like this. So we'll get our users, try it out. As you can see, we have the ID, name, role, and email, but we're not showing password or if it's enabled or not. And that's important because we don't want to bring that stuff back. Now let's try and create a new user. We shouldn't be able to do that, by the way. If it does happen to be, then we've had an issue. Okay, let's just try it. Nope. And it says error 403. And if you know your status codes, it means that this is forbidden. And we'll go back into this because I don't like the error handler, the controller. We will change this around because it's throwing a null at us. And we'll just put an error as well. Okay. So we'll go back to Chrome here. And we will actually sign out. Everything worked well. So now we'll go into our admin. We'll log in, log out, do admin, and we'll do admin password. And that's going to the root. Let's see if we can get to admin. Hello, admin. Okay, so everything's working correctly. Go into Swagger. And just to make sure that we can get our users. Yep, we can. And now let's try to create a new user. And we'll just say new user, new user password. I'll make sure that it's active and we'll set the role. Actually, we'll set the role right up here. So we'll make sure that it's already role user. So we don't need to do anything down here. Okay, as you can see, the password is right here. It hashed the password. So new user password got hashed to this. And it's enabled. What we're going to need to do, we're going to need to give it an email. So what is this? Is it 3? Number 3. Try it out. Make sure our user ID is correct. And we will say new user at email.com. Okay, now I've given it a email. We can update it. We'll say 3, and let's change it to an admin. And we'll say new admin. We'll say new admin password. Execute. Okay. Let's get the user. Okay, there we go. And it has the role admin now instead of user. So let's double check that we can delete this just fine and that it actually stays deleted. Okay, so ID 3, name, new admin, role admin, email, new user at email has been deleted. So we just want to double check that it has been deleted, and voila, it's been deleted. So that's pretty much it. And also with this custom error controller, you have all these down here. There's more to the HTTP response than just get, put, post, delete. You also have options, head, and patch. Make sure to look that stuff up. And then also here, this is our root, and it says hello everyone. Our user is hello user. Our admin, hello admin. See, if we were a user, we would not be able to see hello admin. And if we were just a regular person, we wouldn't even be able to see hello user, but we would be able to see hello everyone. Okay. I can actually put in some of my stuff to make this hello controller a little bit more fleshed out if you guys would like to see that.
Yes, but can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So if you were the whole project of this example is this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if you were going to incorporate this part to say your football project, you would just need to add all of these same same files.
I did it a little bit differently.
Okay.
The way that I set it up, I did not have a roles or an email in there. I had role, but role was under the user table, for example. And I actually used user details instead of just having everything go into the user details service. So that's why I'm saying that there's different ways that you can do this. This isn't the end all be all way of doing it. I did this for simplicity to show you guys how to do it, to make it a little bit simpler for you guys.
It's great. I was just wondering, like, if I wanted to incorporate a user portion of my application, would I be able to just kind of follow this model and add it to something that already exists, or would it be better, do you think, to start from scratch and incorporate it as I go?
You can add all this, everything.
Okay.
This is very compatible with anything that you will do.
So it's kind of like modular in nature.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can do anything that you have, and yeah, you can just put this in here, like, because there's nothing that these things are kind of separate by themselves. But
okay. Oh, yeah, I guess it doesn't really overlap with the user table, so to speak. This is just a user to get into Swagger.
Yes, yes. But I also wanted to show the reason why I did it this way was to show that you could incorporate all this stuff into the Spring Security. That was kind of my main goal when I first started thinking about this project, was to show people how we could get from just regular JPA stuff, and then eventually we could do Spring Security and do password and stuff like that, and not make it overly complicated.
Super cool. Thank you.
No problem. And what's up?
So, okay, this is the back end, right? We're looking at functions to make the website, like, for example, a user for Facebook login, right? Whatever, why not?
Well, technically, this is kind of a front end tool that we're using with Swagger. but it's accessing the back end, right? So I'll actually show you my my attempt at front end, and it's okay. It's nothing to write home about. The people that know front end would probably be a lot better to do this. But like I said, I just wanted to make something really simple and kind of flesh it out. And I have no clue what I'm doing with front end. So I will actually delete all this and put all of what I have. And do not, it doesn't matter. Like, do not pay attention to all this. This is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So
So this is gonna change the front, the way we see stuff when we click on something, right?
So I decided to return this all as a string. Don't do this. Actually have an HTML file. This is hardcore. This is not the way to do it. I'll tell you that. So all this is your HTML, your CSS, and right here, here's some CSS right here, the button.
That is awesome. How to do your front end in the back end.
Right. This is how a backend programmer does front end. And there's some JavaScript right here. So, and I will save this. And I have another one for my custom error controller, and we'll do the same thing with that.
So
I
that's
wonder if you could,
What's that?
Chris can go first.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering, since it was just a script or, just string, if CDN documentation would help to like incorporate Bootstrap or something like that as an extra script or two.
I'm like I said, this is my attempt at front end. I'm not very good with all this stuff.
No, I know, and like it looks fine to me, but like I'm just saying that like since it's returning it like that, I'm wondering if the CDN links would actually work or if it wouldn't. Because CDN links allow you to have access to like styling libraries.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you might be able to. I'm not really positive about all that stuff. Like I said, I just kind of researched a little bit of front end, made it a little cool, made the buttons move. I thought that was pretty neat, and I thought that was a victory.
Just
Okay.
wondering how far you can push it.
I don't know, and it would be a pain to do this with everything in green and not having any sort of
Oh yeah,
doing it.
no.
Oh man, I would not want to do this on a daily basis. Like I said, you can add in HTML through what's called a static file right here, and I believe that would be in your resources. You can add a static file right there, and then you can pass in HTML.
And you can use VS Code for it. You don't have to
Yeah,
do it on Notepad or anything.
right. Yeah, this is definitely how I did it. Okay, now let's go back to where we're at. Okay, let's go back here.
Test it out. Yeah.
What's up?
No, I was saying test it out.
Yeah. So we will log in, log out. We will just do user real quick. Welcome. See, and you have these fancy little buttons going on. See, this is very, very minimal, but I was really happy with my buttons. That's about it.
Fantastic.
You got the hover.
Yeah, the hover, right?
Yeah, you got that on hover.
So then we can try to go to admin, right? And it'll be like, no, you can't do that. Dang it. So let's go admin. And we'll go into admin, and then I have API. This brings you to Swagger. You don't have to deal with any of that other stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, Yep, that's pretty much everything that I have for you. And like I said, you guys could check out that code. It's not the way to do the front end, but like I said, this is me. I'm a backend programmer. I'm trying here. I'm learning some new things.
Hey, if you want some playlists, I can get you some playlists.
Definitely be trying to learn some more, that's for sure, because you know it's fun like creating that sort of stuff. And that's kind of the front end right there. Obviously not the way to do front end with it. It's kind of a full stack project a little bit, but you know, there'd definitely be a lot of work there to go.
And you have it, you know, programmed basically just for a computer, not like mobile or anything like that, especially because when it comes to full stack projects, like this is totally
Mhm.
fine for a computer, but like you have to keep in mind of like
The
if you're
screen
doing
size and
iOS, if
whatnot.
you're doing mobile, if you're doing the
Yeah.
screen, are you going to have a dynamic where it changes and automatically, you know, does what it wants?
See, a lot of this I just programmed with pixels, so you're not going to want to do this necessarily for just anything. It's just for my computer, just for me to look at the buttons move and think that I'm pretty cool because I can make buttons move, do the
Hey,
hover
that's
or
how it
whatnot.
starts.
Well, I love it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I love it too. I think it's cool. I like it when people do things that are out of the norm,
And it's
especially the way
definitely
that you did it.
right with just passing along as a string too. Doing it the hard way.
Or the way to like just mess with other people, because it's like, no, it's only supposed to be done this way. It's like, but I can do it this way.
Right, I should
And
have said that.
I live in chaotic spite. That is how I live.
Well, you know, if you make it like that, then you know, if you make it more cryptic and stuff, then you don't have to worry about other people taking your job, right? But with this whole project, I basically wanted to make things easy for people to kind of understand. I know it's some of it's kind of complex topics. The first couple weeks are pretty easy, but week 3 and this week definitely going into more advanced concepts, particularly with the DTOs and the Spring Security. Um, I would definitely tell you guys to dive more into these topics. We just scratched the surface with a lot of this stuff. So there's many different ways of doing this. Like I said, with the DTOs, you can use a tool called MapStruct. It'll make your DTO mapping a lot simpler. And also with Spring Security, this is the general way of doing stuff for JPA. JDBC actually, it's a little bit easier. We kind of have to tinker with things in JPA to make it work, but as you can tell, it's not too complicated. The most important things that you need to make sure that you have are your user detail service and your security config. And once you understand those two concepts right there, then everything else will be a lot easier. As I said before, you can also use something called a user details and then user details service. But for simplicity, I just gave you the user details service itself. And I think that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. I seen how you did the update on your project, and you have like your little cover icons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was reading about it. Java FX. How about Java style CSS? You know how you could code with Java with the a Windows toolkit and like
Yeah.
right. What about that? Is that like any different?
So with Java FX, you're actually making an app, right? A window on, like, let's say the Windows computer, right? So that would be more styled for that. What right here, what we're doing is, you know, a web app, right? We're connecting it through the web. So that's not necessarily the same thing with this. You know, we want to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But yes, if you want to actually create an app, like Java FX is one of the tools that you can use. And that's
That
for
kind of
creating windows and stuff. There's also a couple other things out there too.
that kind of goes into the whole thing of like you have to be aware of what you want to make full stack. Because depending on the route that you go is the limitations that you bring with it.
Hmm.
Would it be any easier to like install Java FX and like plug it into your Eclipse and go by that route?
Never
Well,
tried it.
I think, you never know unless you dive in, right? I
Yeah.
haven't I haven't dived into Java FX as well, but I have read up a little bit about it, and I was actually thinking that'd be kind of a cool project to get into. And that was something that I was thinking about maybe going forward with learning that a little bit. So I think that's definitely a great question. And yeah, like I said, you won't know until you start exploring these things. Like for me, like the Spring Security stuff and whatnot, like this, no one taught me this. I just kind of went in because I was curious about it, and just dove in, consumed a lot of information online, looked at various different websites, and I also watched some YouTube videos, and that helped me a ton. And if you ever want to get some of these resources from me, I can look up a little bit and send you some of the stuff that I look at. There's a couple websites that I really enjoy. Um, there's a couple different YouTube content creators that I really enjoy. I think the one guy, I think his name was like Dan Hill or something. I can't remember his name for sure, but he's great with Spring Security. Very simple. And there's also a guy you might have seen with Java tutorials, Amigos Code. But I think that some of the stuff I like with his other stuff, it's I don't really care for. It's just there's certain videos I thought that weren't that great of quality or were hard to follow along with, where there was other people that were a little bit easier to follow along with. But for general Java stuff, that's a good one there too. Um, yeah, I think the best way to learn is dive into this and start creating your own projects and break stuff, try things new ways. Even if you've done a project with JPA, try to do it a little bit differently next time. And that's gonna be how you become a better programmer. And at least for me, that's how that I've started to understand things a little bit better.
Success requires the sacrifice of failure.
Absolutely.
I recommend Java Programming by Perry Exio. Great book.
Most programming books don't have audiobooks, so I just don't usually buy them.
Yeah, I generally like the audiobooks or whatnot.
Well,
Like
I just
listening to it.
yeah, well, I need it because dyslexia. It's really hard for me to read it without it.
Mhm.
I really wish that they just kind of came with it because it's just like, gosh darn it. There's probably like some place or some where that I get it, but like online, if I'm too tired to read documentation or I can't follow along, I have a text to speech extension on my like all my browsers, so I can just have that read to me, and I don't have to worry about my disability getting in the way or not being able to read or switching up things.
Have you heard
Absolutely.
about the bionic
Maybe
reading?
what?
What?
Bionic reading?
What?
Bionic reading. So it kind of like I'm pretty sure you guys seen it in like TikTok or whatever, but it's like it highlights like the first two words and like the rest of the rest of the first two letters, and then the rest of the word is all like lowercase, so it makes it really easy to read. It's a plugin for your browser. It's also there's another one that I have. It's an ADHD reader. I recommend it. Like I personally am not diagnosed with ADHD, but I think I might have symptoms, and like I'm trying to focus so hard. So plugins really work.
So we need to make an app where we take a picture of it, a written page with our phone, and it translates it into text for our next final project submission.
Or a PDF that extracts like all the text from something, because sometimes you'll find like a great book that doesn't have an audiobook and it'll have like a lot of diagrams, a lot of other things, and then like
Oh
when
yeah.
you try, because I tried doing that one time with a programming book where I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna download the PDF, I'm gonna read along with it, and it's gonna read along with me. It was horrid. the PDF got so distorted and it couldn't read most of it, and like it was just all over the place, and I couldn't figure out. So like if if the text could just be extracted from the PDF so I could so that could be read to me. I don't care if it's a robotic or lady voice. Just need someone to.
I'm sure that there's going to be there might already be AI out there that you can do stuff like that.
Maybe. I'm too busy with my other projects though.
Yeah.
My post on random was not a joke.
I know the feeling sometimes. Definitely.
Oh, Heather, did you see the poll on JPA?
Let me in the channel.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
might have to scroll up a little bit.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting in there. Oh no, that's general. Oh gosh. I've been so hit or miss with these channels lately. It's just been really crazy. What is I'm scrolling simple poll. Oh, yeah, if I can make it to let me get on there. Hold on. Let me find the right dude. If I can make it to the time frame, I will come to anything. The problem has lately been just, well, I had that surgery and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of took me out of commission for a couple of weeks. But then now it's just a matter of if I can fit it in around marching band and jazz band and choir practice and green band, I will be there.
Probably be the same time as it is like for Mondays, because makes sense just to keep it at the same time.
Yeah, this will probably work out all right for me. So I put yes in there. That's great.
Yeah. Trying to
Yes,
find a mix of my my pixel art and my friend's pixel art, because ours are so different.
I know your pixel art was pretty cool. You showed the other night. So we'll probably do a quick one of these next week, and it's just gonna be like Q&As. If you guys don't have any Q&As, just let me know. But if you guys start doing some of these projects and you have any errors or whatnot, we'll just give it over to you to we'll just kind of go over and troubleshoot some of the stuff that's going on if you have any problems. And if it just happens to be where nobody really has any questions or whatnot, then maybe if Jolene's here, she can start showing what she has done. I think that would be cool, unless she's
Yeah.
not ready yet.
I mean, I'm not ready like precisely right now, but I am
Oh.
sharing some of my friends' artwork on the JPA channel.
Okay. Yeah, so next week will probably be a little bit, it'll definitely be probably a shorter meeting. I won't be going into anything more. I think that everything that we've talked about over the last 4 weeks is a very good foundation for getting you into JPA and doing a little bit more advanced stuff. Like I said, there's other ways of doing some of the stuff that I showed you over the last 2 weeks, but I think it's pretty cool. All right. Do we have any more last minute questions or comments or?
What does everyone think about the art and my friend's art? I'm curious.
Definitely very cool. Way better than anything I could do. Like I said,
Yeah, that's awesome.
the other night I thought that you could see something like that, like like Game Boy Color and stuff, like some of those pixel arts, particularly on the bottom. Like it just kind of reminds me like some of the stuff that they had with Pokemon back in the day. It's really cool.
Zelda.
I like to do pixel art when I crochet. I crochet granny squares and just put them together to make Afghans and stuff like that. So that pixel art works perfect for that.
That's very nice.
I've seen how programmers make them so to put them inside the games that you can make with Java, and it does not look easy. I know they use paint. It's like, how are you gonna paint a whole picture on a Just with the mouse, it's insane.
I've seen some people
Do
do
you
some
do you
crazy stuff with CSS too. It's like, holy cow.
Creativity for sure.
Yeah. There's also, iPads and tablets that you can book. I don't
Yeah.
do it with a mouse. Do it with my tablets.
I used to work for a gaming company, and all the artists use tablets uh, for their creations.
I mean, some people I know do like do amazing art pieces with like, I don't know them personally, but I know that there are people that do that. So good on them, but I'm not going down that route.
I think a lot of people that do like creative stuff, you see a lot of like iPads and Mac users, anything with, just drawing to music stuff too. At least from in my experience, I've seen a lot of people that are very creative that's kind of their platform of choice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
video editing.
Hmm.
Mhm. I mean, that's why I bought an iPad Pro, because I wanted Procreate.
I would rather go Surface, honestly.
Ew.
Why? It's the best.
Yeah.
No. Apple is good, like, Apple is good at art. They've been doing art for a while. So, plus, like, the like, Procreate itself is only a one-time payment of like $10. And then they have like this new 3D modeling thing. And then you can bring the 3D models into Procreate and you can paint on top of them. And then the only thing that doesn't work in like on your iPad currently is animating with bones with the 3D meshes and such like that. You have to actually export it to something like Blender, Godot, or uh something like that to create the bones. But that's a lot that you can do just on your iPad, and then all you have to do is add the bones. Them bones.
It gives me Animal Crossing vibes for sure.
Yeah. I like it. I'm just trying to find a medium between my stuff and their stuff, so it'll be easier for them to draw. So the end product might be something sort of in the middle, where like they're a little bit taller, a little less chibi, but also still chibi-like. But his stuff reminds me of like the old games from Sierra. Like I think her name was Rosalina or something. I forget the main girl's name. But Sierra games, that's just it reminds me a lot of the Sierra games, his pixel art.
Well, it says the ones that are the first ones.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm laughing because I was looking up Sierra games and the only thing I recognize is Leisure Suit Larry.
Ah,
I watched a playthrough of it. It's very nice.
Have a good night, Chris. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna get off here. I have to do a few things before get ready for bed tonight. But I really enjoyed these last few weeks hanging out with you guys. And we'll have one more week, and then we'll transition to what Jolene has cooking, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Especially because with some of the people in the it wasn't the one that you're in, but it was a different person. Or different people. They're joking and they're like, we're gonna bully whoever asks questions now because they'll take away the fun, cool new thing. We want to learn how to program a video game. Just like, no, you can ask questions. This is if we have dead air. No bullying. It was obviously a joke, but I'm just like, no, no bully.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Sorry I didn't make it until this week. I'm so bummed, but I'll go back and watch the videos.
About to say,
Yeah,
I'm excited to incorporate this.
totally fine. That's why I decided to record it. And also in the GitHub, I have different branches for each week. So you have week
Nice.
1 branch, week 2 branch, and
Super.
week 3, and then I'll add a week 4 branch, and I'll merge it with the main branch. So
nice.
Well, thank you for doing it, and have a good night, everybody.
y'all have a good night as well. Thank you very much for joining in.
Yeah. Bye.
Everybody have a good night.
You too. Bye.